Hello, viewers. This is the nonprofits, but we are not making a profit. Not like your Christian church, anyway. Do you know where your tithe is going? How do you even track all the money that you are pouring into your congregation? Or do you at all? You may want to start after hearing this segment because Kelly Laughlin is with us, and he is going to fill us in on how Christian leaders may very well embezzle over $80 billion in 2024. Kelly, how do we arrive at such an astronomical number?
Well, Jimmy, that figure comes from the Center for the Study of Global Christianity, part of the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. It's a religious organization, so this isn't an anti-religion group. But they say that the churches will embezzle some $390 billion annually by 2050. Now, the Trinity Foundation, which is another religious group that's a watchdog group of other religious organizations, attributes those financial losses to skimming from offering plates, diverting mission donations to personal expense accounts, and even international cash smuggling, which they actually have cases of. While it isn't always easy to track how these statistics on crime that isn't caught, these Christian researchers say they have come up with a good formula to figure it out. And what they've done is they've taken the amount of money that was generated by the economy and figured out the percentage of fraud from that, and then use that percentage to the amount of money brought in by churches. So it seems like a pretty good formula, and they are warning people within their faith to be wary of their church leaders.
Yeah, excellent point. And I like that you mentioned that the Christians doing this research and watchdogging, or excuse me, the people doing this research and watchdogging are in fact Christian.
Yes, they are.
Because you might think, well, the bias would typically swing in the other direction, right? But I think that this is a perfect example of Christians needing to be concerned about where their money is going. This is not our job. Heck, I wouldn't mind if they stole from each other, to be honest with you. I'd like to see the whole system come crashing down. But as a person with their butt in the pews every week, you might want to be concerned, asking the questions about, hey, where is that actually going? Blayton, I want to ask you, do you think that there's a double standard between religious organizations, the way that the accounting is done, and humanist organizations, let's say, or non-religious organizations? How do you reconcile the differences between how they account for their funds?
I think the fact that churches don't have to file any financial disclosures with the IRS is already insane. Like, that alone makes it almost impossible to even quantify how much they actually take from people. And then the research in this article shows that Christians all over the world will give about $1.3 trillion to Christian causes just in 2024. So imagine if we had that kind of money taken towards a humanist effort. Like, we could change the fucking world with that. You know what I mean? Like, we would do so much with that. And I mean, we're human. So even if it is a humanist effort going towards this, there's going to be some fraud. People are people. Let's be honest. Sure. But I mean, you have to think about that number is 86 billion with a B that is lost. So I feel like, can we just regulate these people? Can we get some kind of governmental infrastructure to come in and just say, hey guys, where'd that money go? Like, is that so hard?
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, can we bring in some oversight, right? But how much is too much? What would be fair? And Cynthia, I want to turn to you and ask you, how much transparency should actually be required?
To the fullest. It's church.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, these are the people that's leaders of these people's immortal souls. You go to church every week in order for you to sit your butt in a pew and listen to somebody tell you about what Jesus did and why you should do it too. And if you don't, you're going to hell or purgatory if you're Catholic. So it's absolutely pertinent, in my opinion, that there should be more transparency in how people are being told about how their money is being spent. I mean, like, I think that one of the things that the article actually even points out that it's not just mega churches that's doing this. We're still having issues even with smaller dioceses, smaller churches that are still going to be caught in the fray of embezzling. And man, when you even talked about Blayton, that $1.3 trillion money figure that's going to, like, you know, Christian organizations and also, you know, other causes. I'm like, dang, that's a down payment on reparations. But I digress.
Yeah, no shit.
A
Right?
topic for another show, I'm sure.
Yes,
Right,
As soon as I
yeah,
get you guys
yeah.
back together.
Yeah. Totally.
I want to be on that show too.
Yeah, totally. We'll get that going. But yeah, but seriously, it's just so sobering when you actually just think about like how churches in of themselves can be able to, you know, take the money, put it in their coffers, and do whatever they want to do with it without even telling the IRS. That's insane. I mean, like, we even covered like how the Mormon church has a multi-billion-dollar war chest that is within their ranks, even though they have been accused of all types of heinous acts by their eldership, their leadership, and the like. Especially when I even think about like how they are still telling and going into poor countries and telling people that they need to give and they need to tithe even when they don't have it. And because people feel that, oh, this is my immortal soul, you know, Jesus will reward me in my afterlife, blah, 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 you know, 12 gates to the city type stuff,
Pie in the
then I'm
sky.
going to, yeah, exactly. Pie in the sky until you die. You right?
Yep.
And it's so egregious.
It's a lie.
It's such a lie.
Gotta keep the
The
rhyme
pie in
going.
the sky before you die is a big
It's a
fat
lie.
lie. Okay. And gosh, I really just wish that this whole like protection that the United States government gives to faith-based organizations would just completely go away. Because if you are a 501c3 that is secular in orientation, you're not going to get that protection. It's just faith-based organizations because Jesus said.
Absolutely. And we see that, you know, even in our own organization, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we stick to the rules pretty thoroughly. While we also know that there's plenty of political preaching and ideology emanating from many pulpits across this country, trying to sway voters, if you will, either left or right. Probably not left too often, but in any case, you know, why is it that Christian or religious organizations in general are just kind of hands off? I think that for somebody that wants to control societies to such extremes, that they should have the equal extremes placed on them when it comes to watchdogging. You know, there's some other things that I wanted to add on. Cynthia, you brought up a great points about how money is being used. Let's not forget, you know, the Catholic Church has a fund that is set aside to defend perpetrators of sexual assault or those that are accused or alleged. Why should any organization have a pot of money that is set aside to defend child molesters? It is an awful thing to think about, and it really doesn't compute. And if it had the kind of oversight that we're looking for, if these organizations did, they might not even need something like that, and they can actually do some good. You know, we saw, after Notre Dame burned down, how much money was raised within a matter of 24 hours. We couldn't get that to help the poor. But this is an organization that tells you, well, Jesus said, give all your things away. We got to help the poor. No, they just want they just want you to give your things to Jesus, but they'll collect it for them. And don't worry about where the money goes. You know, we'll take good care of it. I think that there is a pretty pervasive nature to steal words from Cynthia. You know, I know that you came into the show mentioning that you think that the church has a pervasive nature. I think that the fact they pay no taxes, they've got huge acres of land that are just being used as grass beds, essentially. There's not helping the economy. They're not doing any good for anybody. I wanted to kick it over to Kelly and Blayton. What are some of the ways that you think the nature of religious institutions can be pervasive?
Blayton, you want to go first?
Sure. I think one of the most glaring and obvious ways that is pervasive is, again, looking at our politics. How many elected officials come in just literally their first thing is to say, well, I'm a good Christian man and I follow the Bible. And that literally brings in people because people are so damn indoctrinated. That's literally all you have to say is, I'm a Christian. So, I mean, like, has there ever been a non-Christian president?
No. So, I mean, that is the pervasive nature of this entire system. That it gets into everything because it already is in everything. And the people that are running the system are a part of this exact same thing. So, of course, it's not even pervasive. It's just what is, because you're not getting into it. It already is there.
Yeah. And I think one of the big problems there is that the people who are in this system all think that everybody else in the system is just on the up and up, just like they are. Right. Because there are good people within that system. I'm not going to deny that. But those good people aren't stopping the bad people because they're under the assumption that those bad people are good people, too. Otherwise, why would they be working at the church? Of course, they're good people. They're with the church. Of course, they're good people. And that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, there is this idea that you can say the simple buzzwords and you have checked boxes and you're one of the good guys. And I don't know how that overpowers or overshadows the many atrocities that come out of these same organizations. And I just, I guess I want to kind of pick your brains a little bit. What do you think it is about the American psyche and that is consistent, I think, across all races in the country. I mean, we've in our recording tonight talked about a few racial issues, and it's easy to point to the divides. But what I see as a trend, and ironically so because of the divides that exist within Christianity, is that, regardless of what your ethnic background is, as long as someone says, all right, Jesus, check, church, check, Bible, check, they're one of the good guys, and maybe we should support that person. I don't know. How do our panelists tonight feel like we get to that point? Cynthia, any thoughts on that?
I believe it just goes back to how we as a society is overwhelmingly Christian, and especially in the Black community is super uber Christian. And along with that comes with indoctrination. Even if they're not necessarily like Christian, you still have an overwhelming populace that is still theistic. And I'm sorry, theists, I'm just going to tell you my opinion, but when you actually put a living sky daddy in your life, and instead of like looking past that and looking within yourself and just looking at human beings as who they are, you devoid yourself from critical thinking and skepticism. As you just said, Jimmy, okay, I got the church, check. I got my pastor, check. And my pastor said, check, and if pastor said that, I mean, it's right. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, like, and that's something that we see a lot in people who happen to be, especially I would say like in more charismatic evangelical settings, they are super under that thumb of, pastor said it's right because Jesus said it's right, and man of God hears from Jesus, and therefore there go I, and I'm glad that at least that we have a trend of people actually kind of falling away from the church, and we do have a rise of the nones, right? The irreligious, and even having like more people who happen to be more agnostic and atheistic in their point of views, because at least if they start to look at the religion in of itself and how it can be more so of a fetter, of a bond, especially on the mind, then they can kind of cast those things away and start to think for themselves and not necessarily be pulled in per se to being able to go along with the norm and do things like throw away all your damn money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gentlemen, any comments on that?
You can go ahead, Kelly.
I was afraid you were going to say that. One of the things that I did.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I've got a question for you.
No.
Okay.
I was going to. One of the things that we didn't bring up. Well, we did kind of bring it up, but I got it in my notes, so I wanted to mention it. That the Trinity Foundation did give a list of solutions for the problem, and they included things like just normal things like routine audits, transparency, more oversight of the people who are in control of the church funds, maybe getting insurance to cover fraud, and the big one, actually taking actions when there are suspicions of illegal activity. Instead of thinking, oh, this person's on the up and up, so this just must be a mistake in the books, just a mistake in the arithmetic, maybe actually look into it. And I mean, that's I think is really, really important. These are things that any other nonprofit has to do for the most part. We have to do that at the ACA. We have to have transparency. We have to have oversight. We have to have routine audits. This is the toughest stuff that nonprofits do. And I don't understand why the church is able to get away without doing these things.
Yeah. You know, Blayton, I wanted to reflect on something you mentioned, and that was, excuse me, the usual suspects, that this is not a case of the usual suspects, is it? When I think of $86 billion going missing, I think of a pope in a bulletproof car or on a golden throne. You know, I think of a bunch of men in really expensive garb that probably came from all over the world, you know, kind of just sniveling with each other. Ha ha, we did it again. But that's not the case, is it? What do you think, Blayton?
No, it's not our usual suspects. It's not those Ric Flair preachers, you know, the styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying. It's not those guys. Yes, that's who you think it would be. But no, it's the people that actually handle the finances in these small churches, mega churches, whatever size the church. It's the people that have their hands in all of this stuff, people that understand the system, the trustees, the first lady, people that just do the day-to-day operations. These are the people that know all the intricacies of the church. And again, without any actual oversight, it's never going to stop. So like we keep saying, tithe at your own risk. And it's symbolic anyway. It works just like prayer. It makes you feel like you've done something without actually doing anything. So,
yeah. And, you know, on that note, as we wrap it up, I just want to go across the panel with all this money that's being taken place. And this can be a fun one, or excuse me, being taken. This could be a fun one if you'd like. I want to start with Blayton and then work towards Kelly. All right. What is the number one thing that the church owes its congregation after stealing all this money from them? What do you think?
As much as minorities, Black people in particular, have given to the church, I feel like, just like Cynthia said, they can start our reparations by themselves.
Great point. Cynthia, what are your thoughts on that?
Reparations and a trip to Six Flags, like every church.
Which Six Flags?
Well, yeah. I mean, like in your respective area, you know, some amusement park. All churches, you need to take them, and the children too. You need to do it. And we want lunch, dinner, travel, and we also want to stay in suites. You can afford it.
I want a turkey leg.
If they're taking children, I want chaperones.
Yes,
I
was thinking the same thing.
Yes, of course. No, adults and the children go along. I'm not leaving my kid with no. Screw that. No, I'm going with him.
Absolutely not. Right.
Kelly, what do you think? What does the church owe us? I mean, I've donated to church before when I was under their influence. What do you think?
I think they owe us the money.
Yeah.
They took our money. Give
Show
us
me
our
the
money
money.
back. Or at least give us the receipts for where you
Yeah.
are going to spend the money in the future.
Yeah.
Right? Start making that money back. Do what you have to do to make that money back, and actually spend it on the things that you are supposed to spend it on. And I think that is the best way to pay it back.
You know, I think
You know
refund.
what? Hold up. You know
one-time
what? You know what the
refund.
church owes us? The
Yeah.
church owes us evidence that what we were given to is a real thing.
Right.
I want to go to
Yes,
church and I want
yes,
Jesus to be standing up there like, "Hey, I appreciate y'all. Good stuff."
Yeah.
That's what they owe us.
That's
They owe us some
what I
damn
was going to
evidence.
say, because I think throughout my entire, from age 7 to like 15, they were working on the chapel or something, and I'm like, when are they going to fix this thing? You know, I watch everybody put their hands in the jar and drop off money every week for years, and this thing was still beaten up. So I don't know. I don't know
how much of
happened.
that money was being skimmed.
Right.
Well,
Maybe
You
that's
never
why
know.
it took so long.
You'll
Right.
never know.
Exactly.
Listen, let me just say really quick. We ain't gonna talk about, and Blayton, you can co-sign on this, how long Black Church has been raising money for the building fund.
Man, we got to get that baller fixed. Y'all come on Wednesday. We got to get that baller fixed. Hey, sir, it is still cold, sir. I own a coat in service. When the baller gonna be fixed, sir?
20 years
Gotta get that
later.
baller fixed.
20 years later.
A great discussion tonight. Very lively at the end. I love ending the show that way. Viewers, we've talked about a lot of things tonight. We've talked about some of the different segments that we recorded tonight that aren't part of this one. So if you want to go see them and you want to get more nonprofits content, click the link below.